Hello and welcome to IABM TV. Today I'm delighted to welcome back into the studio Richard Weir, founder and managing director of Interfacio. Richard, welcome back to IABM TV.
Thank you.
So Richard, we spoke a while ago about recruitment, skills, and I want to talk now about you guys were founded 16 years ago, and what are some of the key changes that you've seen in those 16 years?
Well, it's really interesting, and I'm going to talk about that. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you for inviting me here again. It's great to be with you. We've enjoyed a couple of really good IABM events at IBC this year, and talking about evolution in recruitment. I started the business in 2002, and back then technology was very different.
Yep.
Companies' approaches to hiring staff was different. The growth curve point in the industry was probably different, and I think then it was much more about a traditional recruitment agency model, where companies would obviously hire themselves, but they would go out to the market, to agencies, and look for people who were, if you like, on the books, looking at usually through CV database, that type of approach. And that worked very well. That's how we started in the business, building a global network of people who knew us well and clients that we worked with. I think the recession changed a lot, and in parallel, technologies obviously provided additional capabilities and tools for search and talent and recruitment. But I think the recession was a real inflection point, because for a period of time afterwards, there were of course a lot of people available in the market, people out of a job who were looking, and companies got quite used to the idea that they could, for a period of time, hire what I used to say, twice the talent for half the money.
Right. Okay.
And it was sort of a luxurious period if you were a manufacturer or a distributor or a production company looking for staff. Interestingly, at the same time, investment in some areas dropped off completely. Particularly marketing was a classic niche that just didn't get any input and effort and funding from a hiring point of view. So there were an awful lot of marketing people, very good marketing people, suddenly in the market.
Yep.
And a lot of those people actually started firms, started their own businesses. And some of the great marketing businesses now, PR firms, specialist consultancies, have founded through those type of people who were in in-house roles, set themselves up, have now done very well. But interestingly, 5 years later, let's say about 2013, companies would suddenly think, what do we do? We've got no marketing. We need to get our marketing going again and start spending in that area, and couldn't find marketing talent at all. So there was a huge sort of phase, 2 or 3 years, when everybody was coming to us and saying, we need head of marketing, head of channel marketing, head of strategic marketing. What do? We can't find them. And they'd all gone off and started their own businesses. And so that was an interesting thing. But really, I think that the biggest, most obvious change in process and what we as a search firm provide to our clients is the difference between being a recruitment agent and knowing people who are looking for a job and in the market, but actually finding people, search effectively.
So let's talk about that then, the difference between search and recruitment. Because you mentioned obviously the traditional recruitment model versus a search one. What are the key differences, and how are they different?
A lot of it's down to psychology and the balance between the employer and the employee, the hirer and the job seeker, if you like. If you go out to the market and you advertise a role and you promote a role, you will get people who are looking for a job, who are available, who are actively seeking something, possibly open-minded, but you'll find that body of people. You can be lucky still, you can find good people in the market who are in transition. Lots of people change roles for one reason or another, but a lot of the times companies today are looking for very specific skills, business skills, whether that's in sales, channel management, territory management, team leadership, or marketing, which is today much more about business operation marketing than it is about traditional brand marketing or more the traditional marketing mix. It's now much more about digital, about lead gen, about automation, and those skills tend to often come from other larger or more mature industry sectors than broadcast or audio. They come out of telco or IT. So a lot of our clients are coming and saying, we want somebody who understands the domain, who's got knowledge or passion or interest in broadcast, media, graphics, audio, sound, but we really want someone who knows the business disciplines of channel marketing or technology marketing or segment marketing or strategic sales and business development in 2018, and those skills are very valuable, often difficult to find in terms of some of the people who've come up through the industry, but oftentimes we're finding probably 50% of the people we place through our search work are people who, first of all, we didn't know before we started the search, which is an interesting change. In that probably if you look back 10, 15 years, we probably knew 80, 90% of the people that we were placing before we started the engagement. And the other thing is a lot of those people are coming from slightly outside the market. We've just completed a search for a US firm for a global head of marketing in specifically government sector, so public sector, defense, education. And they were very specific. They wanted somebody who could function effectively in a technology solutions business, but they wanted someone not just from broadcast. They wanted someone from wider industry. And we went out, ran the search, found, I don't know, we probably looked at 100 plus people, but we probably identified 10 or 15 who are really relevant. And this lady who has been found through the search, based in Paris, working for a completely different type of business in wider sort of telco and IT. We would never have found her, they would never have found her if they'd gone through the traditional methods of promoting in the broadcast industry or looking at, let's say, people available looking for a job. So it's all about very carefully targeted strategic searching.
So how, without giving away any secrets or anything, Richard, how would you, so the example you gave there, that lady may not have been thinking she wanted to change jobs, but then an amazing opportunity came along that made her think. So how, firstly, how do you go about finding these people without giving away too many secrets? And secondly, how do people go about making it so that they're more attractive to you? So you're searching for something in a key role. How does somebody make it so that as a candidate, they would come up in your searches?
It's a really good question. First of all, it's not rocket science. And you mentioned about not giving away trade secrets. I don't think we have any magic. Recruiters and search firms don't do magic. They just do the stuff they do very well. We have developed methods and processes over the years, and we're always refining that. We have the same tools available to us as a lot of our clients who have in-house teams who do a very good job of their own hiring. Usually, though, those companies might be working 90% of their recruitment will be done in-house, but from time to time they'll run up against a stubborn, tricky hire, which is not happening. It might be taking 3, 4, 6 months or longer, and usually I think it's true. We've developed a fairly good understanding of this process, and there's usually a reason. If a role isn't getting filled, in a reasonable amount of time, there's one of 3 reasons. One is the definition of that role. The person doesn't exist. The company's trying to put too many things in one basket to optimize. We've got a head count for this. We want this person to be able to do that and that. Oh, by the way, that as well. It needs to be strategic. It needs to be tactical. It needs to be high level. It needs to be sort of detailed implementation. Sometimes roles are just overly complicated so that the person doesn't actually exist. Another reason is the company itself doesn't really know actually what it wants, and it's going in a sort of circular process of meet 2 or 3 candidates
and evolve
that iterates into a thought change that says actually we want more of this. It goes around a consensus maybe of 5 or 6 people inside the organisation, and it keeps morphing. That we've all seen that situation. And the third one is usually crude but simple, is down to money. If you spend 6, 9 months looking for someone, you can't find them, there's a reason, and that's about supply and demand. Industries in a healthy state, a lot of companies are managing their businesses very well, although the market's changing. So it's a very challenging time, as we know. Broadcast production workflows are changing. It's all about content supply chain. Business models are changing. That applies to the manufacturers and the technology providers, which is mostly who we work with. They themselves are having to do the same thing, adapt their business processes and business models. And as a result, the people they need to bring in have to be absolutely, right for the role and able to deliver on the business skills side as well as the domain expertise side. And in terms of how do we do it, which was your question, it's all about the definition and the brief. This point about if there's not a clear definition on the role, it'll be very hard to hire. We usually try and do 2 things. We drill down with the client And this is where we feel that our industry background, because all of the 4 principal consultants in my business are all from the industry.
Right,
We've all
okay.
worked in the industry before we were in recruitment. So one of our team members, Jo, she's exclusively working in R&D and engineering. She worked for 10 years as an R&D engineer designing production audio mixers, for example. Isabel, who works in our European business, mostly in France and Germany and Benelux,
Yep.
spent 16 years managing sales in broadcast and audio in Europe. So we all have that background. So I think it makes it easier for us to actually converse and dial into the sort of strategic backstory behind the hire, what the business agenda is,
Yep.
why this headcount, this hire is being invested in the first place. But then it's all about the conversation, the spec. So we talk about getting really clear about the important things. We've all seen job descriptions, and job descriptions can be,
Yep.
2 or 3 pages long, and they can have a list as long as your arm of the things that the company is looking for. We try and drill it down into 3 things.
Right, okay.
We call it 3 must-haves. Usually, if you can define 3 must-haves in a role spec, you've got the ability to have clarity
Yep.
when screening out and screening in people. And there's an interesting point there, which is that I think as a recruiter and a search firm, we work obviously with mostly in-house hiring teams, and whether it's driven by HR or driven by line management in departments within businesses. And there's a bit of a mindset, which is that we need to sort of screen people out. Mm-hmm. And of course that's important. And that's when people are applying, coming to the business or coming to the company saying, I want to be considered for this role. But actually, I think part of the art is screening people in, mm-hmm. of going, let's look for some of the things beyond the obvious of what really is being sought here. And they may not be obvious on paper initially, but you may think, actually, there's something there that actually fits this role. Yeah. And keeping those people in a process rather than out of it. And it's funny how often those people sometimes, bubble to the top and end up, getting hired. But it's really defining the role in the first place well, and then focusing on those things as the key ones.
Yep.
And then in terms of process, we tend to run a sort of 3-pronged approach with a search. We have people we know,
Yep.
known to us, whether that's in our database, whether it's in LinkedIn, other places that are all connected with us as a network. We promote, actively and intelligently, again, like our clients, on their own hiring
Yep.
talent funnels and pages. But we do that, constantly and I think reasonably well, because we've developed methods of doing that that's effective. And the third is search. We do a lot of research-driven work,
Yep.
where we're going out and finding a pool of potential candidates and then approaching them, having a conversation, trying to assess if there's a good mutual interest. Yep. Around career development, career trajectory. Is that person going to be fitting well with the culture of the business? Because companies have different cultures, whether that's a business culture or a technology culture, or just a temperament and emotional culture. So that's
Yep.
the thing that we look at as well. And in the end, that's how you find a good fit and a good marriage between
Yeah.
what the employee is potentially looking for and what the company's looking for.
Okay, so let's look at it from the person you're looking for now. So let's say I'm in a job, and you find a role comes up, and you're trying to find someone to fill that role. What would identify me as someone suitable for that role? Would it be a strong LinkedIn profile? Would you check other social channels? Would it be people's knowledge of me or anything?
I think all of those things have a factor. Certainly, being out there in the public domain, deeper web, whether it's LinkedIn or other
Yep.
content, is the first way that we would find people. I think that the traditional old school headhunting methods of phoning up companies and pretending to be the doctor and trying to have a conversation with people are probably long gone.
Yep.
But one does recognise the profile of people who are, I suppose, positively available. That
Right,
doesn't mean they're actively looking for a position, but marketing or communicating about what they do in a sort of proactive and an open way. But it really is about trying to identify potential fit, and that's about trajectory. That's about career trajectory.
Yeah.
We can tell whether this might be interesting for someone based on what we can see, usually on paper.
Yeah.
But then it's about having a conversation. and we don't get it right all the time. You know, we might do a search and look at 130 people, and we might contact 40 or 50. We might hear back from half of them. You know, we might have a conversation with 2/3 of those,
Yeah.
and usually you can tell in 5 or 10 minutes whether it's the fit that you think it is or it isn't, and then it just becomes a more detailed, interesting process of you know, two-way interaction, and we try and make sure that what we're getting into discussions about is, you know, of mutual interest and benefit, and then it usually takes a fairly natural course from that point.
Yeah. Okay, well, Richard, that was all very interesting. It sounds like lots has changed, and there's lots of challenges and also opportunities within this sector.
Definitely are.
Okay, so to find out more about Interfacio, please visit interfacio.com.